Somewhere between the noise of the world and the quiet of your own thoughts, there is a space where truth hums like a faint melody you've always known. Life is not random. It's a vast, deliberate composition. Every joy, every heartbreak, every silent pause is a note in the great symphony of your becoming. You are not placed here by accident. The challenges you face are not interruptions. They are invitations. The stillness you resist is not emptiness. It is the breath of the universe waiting for you to listen. Your mind is not just a tool for survival. It is the key to perceiving the hidden patterns, the divine timing, the subtle threads that bind all things. And when you learn to master it, you don't just change your life, you step into the rhythm of something eternal. And there, you realize you have always been part of the music. Most of us think we're just living life as it is, that what we see is what's real. But here's the truth most people never stop to think about. We're not seeing the world as it is. We're seeing it as we are. Every moment is filtered through the lens of your mind. And that lens has been shaped by your experiences, your upbringing, your fears, your hopes, the people who loved you, and the people who didn't. It's like wearing a pair of glasses you forgot you had on. If the lenses are scratched, tinted, or warped, you don't see reality. You see distortion. And if you don't realize you're wearing them, you spend your life thinking the problem is the world, when really it's the lens. Give an example. Two people can stand in the exact same place, experiencing the exact same situation, and walk away with completely different interpretations. One will see an obstacle, the other will see an opportunity. Same moment, same facts, different lens. And that difference changes everything. Here's why this matters. If you don't master the lens of your mind, your life becomes a reaction to whatever distortion that lens is feeding you. You start thinking your automatic thoughts are the truth, and they're not. They're just the default programming you've been running for years. But the beautiful, liberating thing is this. You can clean the lens. You can even swap it out entirely. It starts with noticing the way you're interpreting the world. It starts with catching yourself in the act of thinking, this is just how things are. Because the moment you realize, no, this is just how I'm seeing things, you've opened the door to change. Think about how this works in daily life. You wake up in the morning, you spill coffee on your shirt, and instantly you think, great, the day's ruined. That thought doesn't just describe your reality, it creates it. From that point forward, you walk through the day tense, annoyed, closed off to anything good that might happen. But if you master the lens, you catch yourself. You notice, okay, I'm feeling frustrated, but that's just a moment. The day hasn't been written yet. Same situation, different lens, completely different energy. And this isn't just about positive thinking. It's not about slapping on a fake smile and pretending everything's great. It's about seeing clearly. Mastering your mind means learning how to tell the difference between what's real and what's just your mental filter talking. It's about noticing when fear is coloring everything dark, when doubt is making everything look smaller, when old wounds are making you flinch before life even touches you. Sometimes that lens will trick you into believing you're not ready, not capable, not worthy. And if you don't stop to question it, you'll start living as though it's true. But when you do stop, when you get curious instead of reactive, you start to see something incredible. That the lens isn't fixed. It can change. You can choose thoughts that serve you instead of sabotage you. And here's where it gets interesting. When you change the lens, the world changes. Not because the world itself has shifted, but because you're finally seeing what's been there all along. Opportunities that were invisible become visible. Conversations that used to intimidate you become exciting. Moments that felt meaningless start to feel like they're part of something bigger. This is why mastering your mind isn't just a nice idea. It's the foundation for everything else in your life. Because if you don't get this right, you could have all the talent, all the resources, all the luck in the world, and still feel stuck. But once you get this right, once you learn how to clean that lens, your circumstances don't have to change for your experience of life to change. And it's not about perfection. You're not going to magically think only empowering thoughts for the rest of your life. Mastery isn't about control in the sense of forcing your mind into submission. It's about awareness. It's about building the habit of catching yourself, of noticing when the lens is distorting the picture, and then choosing a perspective that moves you forward instead of holding you back. You're going to have days when the lens gets foggy again. That's okay. That's human. The power is in knowing you can wipe it clean anytime you decide to. And if you're wondering how to start, it's this simple. The next time you feel yourself getting pulled into a spiral of negativity, pause and ask, is this the truth? Or is this just my lens? That one question can interrupt years of unconscious programming. That one question can stop you from reacting in ways that keep you stuck. Your mind will offer you 100 interpretations of the world every single day. Most of them are just echoes of old stories. But when you become aware of the lens, you can choose which story you tell yourself. And by choosing the story, you choose the life. Because here's the secret no one tells you. Reality isn't something you passively live in. It's something you actively create through the lens of your mind. And once you see that, you realize you've been holding the key all along. So here's what I want you to think about. If the mind is the lens, then your attention is the aim. It's the steering wheel of your entire experience. And here's what's wild. Most of us are steering without realizing it. We're looking wherever habit tells us to look. We wake up, we check the news, we scroll through social media, we react to whatever comes at us, and then we wonder why our life feels chaotic and exhausting. Let me tell you, your attention is not unlimited. You have a finite amount of mental energy every single day. Every thought, every worry, every tiny distraction takes a little bit of that energy. And if you're not deliberate, you'll spend the best hours of your life feeding weeds instead of growing gardens. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Your focus is your fuel. It's like sunlight on a plant. Whatever you give it to will grow, whether you like it or not. If you shine it on resentment, resentment will grow. If you shine it on gratitude, gratitude will grow. And the tricky part is your mind doesn't judge what it's feeding. It just follows your attention. This is why some people can go through the same struggle you're facing right now and come out stronger, while others come out bitter. The difference isn't luck or circumstance. It's where they place their attention while they were in the middle of it. I remember talking to someone who had just gone through the hardest year of their life. Loss, financial setbacks, health scares, everything all at once. And yet, when I asked them how they kept going, they said, I made a rule for myself. Every day, I'd find one thing worth noticing that didn't hurt. One thing. It didn't have to be profound. It could be a warm cup of coffee or the way the sun hit the wall in the morning. But they aimed their attention at it deliberately. And over time, those moments of noticing stacked up into something that felt like hope. Here's why that works. Your brain loves patterns. If you teach it to scan for what's wrong, it will get really good at finding it. But if you teach it to scan for what's right, for what's working, for what's possible, it will get good at finding that too. And when you change what you're scanning for, you change the quality of your entire life. Now, I'm not talking about ignoring your problems. I'm talking about balancing the weight of what's wrong with the presence of what's right. It's about directing your attention so it fuels the future you want, not the future you fear. Think about this. Your attention is an investment. Every time you give it to something, you're voting for it to exist in your life tomorrow. And most of us are voting for things we don't even want. Giving hours to gossip, outrage, comparison, and anxiety as if those things deserve our best energy. When you really understand this, you start guarding your attention like your life depends on it. Because it does. You stop giving it away so easily. You stop letting every beep, buzz, and headline hijack it. You start asking yourself, is this worth my sunlight? Is this worth growing? Here's the practical part. You can redirect your focus in a single moment. It doesn't require money, perfect circumstances, or a special personality type. It just requires noticing where your attention is right now and deciding where you want it to go next. Let's say you're in the middle of a stressful situation. Your mind is spinning, your chest is tight. If you let your attention stay on the problem, you feed the panic. But if you can pause, take a breath, and shift even 10% of your focus towards something you can do, one action, one step, you interrupt the cycle. You stop watering the weeds and start watering the seeds. The more you do this, the more powerful it becomes. Eventually, it's not just a technique you use in hard moments. It's the way you live. You stop being a passive observer of your own thoughts and become an active participant in your own creation. And here's what's even more profound. Once you start directing your attention, your energy changes. People feel it. Opportunities notice it. Life responds differently when you're radiating focus instead of scattering it. So yes, master your mind. But don't stop there. Aim it. Choose where to point it. Because no matter how clean the lens is, it's useless if you're still aiming it at the wrong things. If you remember nothing else from this moment, remember this. You will always find more of what you focus on. So choose wisely. And here's the thing. Once you've cleaned the lens and started aiming it where it matters, you're going to notice something surprising. Life still moves fast. The noise is still loud. The demands don't stop. Which means if you're not careful, you can slip right back into the old way of living, reacting instead of choosing. That's why the next level of mastery is learning to pause. I don't mean the kind of pause where you're just scrolling your phone on the couch or zoning out in front of a screen. I'm talking about the kind of pause where you stop, breathe, and actually hear yourself think. Where you create a little space between what's happening and how you respond to it. We live in a world that worships speed. If you're not moving, producing, posting, or proving something, you feel like you're falling behind. But the truth is, real power isn't in moving fast. It's in knowing when to stop. The pause is where clarity lives. It's where you stop running on autopilot and start steering with intention. Think about the last time you said something you regretted or made a decision you wish you could take back. Chances are you didn't pause. You reacted. And that reaction probably came from habit, from that old mental programming we talked about earlier. Now imagine if, in that moment, you had stopped for even 3 seconds. Imagine if you had taken one breath before you spoke, before you hit send, before you let that thought spiral. That's all it takes sometimes. A few seconds of stillness to shift from reacting out of impulse to responding out of choice. The pause isn't weakness. It's not hesitation. It's strength. It's you saying, I'm not going to let this moment decide for me. I'm going to decide for myself. And here's the beauty of it. You can practice this anywhere. Standing in line at the store, sitting in traffic, even in the middle of a heated conversation. You can train yourself to notice when your body tenses, when your mind races, and instead of just charging forward, you step back into stillness for a moment. In that space, you see things you couldn't see before. You notice that not every comment deserves a reaction. That not every problem needs to be solved immediately. That sometimes the best move you can make is to make none at all, at least not until you've reconnected with yourself. And this isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about opening a door to something deeper. When you pause, you give wisdom a chance to catch up with you. You hear the quieter voice inside that gets drowned out by all the noise. You see the situation from above instead of being tangled inside of it. I think of it like music. If you've ever listened to a beautiful piece of music, you know it's not just the notes that make it powerful, it's the spaces between them. The pause is what gives the note its meaning. The same is true in life. The stillness gives shape to your actions. It's what turns motion into direction. Here's the tricky part, though. The pause often feels uncomfortable at first. We're so used to filling every silence, solving every problem instantly, proving we have the answer. But when you learn to sit in that stillness without rushing to escape it, you start to feel something remarkable. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You start pausing before reacting in a difficult conversation. You pause before spending money on something you don't need. You pause before saying yes to something you know will drain you. And in those pauses, you take your power back over your time, your energy, your life. This is where everything you've worked on so far comes together. The clear lens from mastering your mind, Ooh, deliberate aim from mastering your focus. And now, the stillness that allows you to use both with intention. So when life comes at you, and it will, remember that you don't have to match its speed. You don't have to get swept away. You can stop, breathe, and choose. Because sometimes the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. And here's the thing. Once you've cleaned the lens and started aiming it where it matters, you'll notice something unexpected. Life will still come at you fast. The noise will still be loud. The world doesn't slow down just because you've decided to think differently. Which means if you're not careful, you'll slip right back into the old way of living, reacting instead of choosing. That's why the next level of mastery is learning the power of the pause. I don't mean the kind of pause where you're scrolling your phone or zoning out in front of the TV. I mean the pause where you stop, take a breath, and actually hear yourself think. The kind that creates a little space between what's happening and what you do about it. We live in a culture that worships speed. If you're not producing, moving, or proving something, you feel like you're falling behind. But the truth is, real power isn't in moving fast. It's in knowing when to stop. The pause is where clarity lives. It's where you stop running on autopilot and start steering your life with intention. Think about the last time you said something you regretted or made a choice you wish you could take back. Chances are you didn't pause. You reacted. And that reaction came from habit, from the mental scripts you've been running for years. Now imagine if you'd taken just 3 seconds to breathe. 3 seconds before speaking, 3 seconds before hitting a send. That's all it takes sometimes. A tiny moment of stillness to shift from reacting out of impulse to responding with purpose. The pause isn't weakness. It's not hesitation. It's strength. It's you saying, I'm not going to let this moment decide for me. I'm going to decide for myself. And you can practice it anywhere. In a meeting. In traffic. While talking to your kids. You can train yourself to notice when your heart races or your jaw tightens. And instead of charging forward, you step back into stillness for just a moment. In that space, you see more. You realize not every comment needs a comeback. Not every problem needs to be solved right now. Sometimes the wisest move you can make is no move, at least not until you've reconnected with yourself. And here's the deeper truth. Pausing doesn't just keep you from mistakes, it opens you to wisdom. In the quiet, you hear the voice that gets drowned out by all the noise. You see the bigger picture instead of being trapped in the heat of the moment. It's like music. If you've ever heard a truly beautiful song, you know it's not just the notes that make it powerful, it's the space between them. The pause gives meaning to the note. The same is true in your life. The stillness gives shape to your actions. At first, the pause feels uncomfortable. We're wired to fill silence, to fix things instantly, to prove we can handle it. But when you learn to sit in that stillness without rushing to escape it, you start to feel something powerful. Control. Control. Not the control that comes from forcing outcomes, but the kind that comes from not being yanked around by every trigger, every thought, every emotion. And with practice, it becomes second nature. You pause before replying in a tense conversation. You pause before saying yes to something that will drain you. You pause before you spend time, energy, or money you don't actually want to give away. And in those moments, you take back ownership of your life. This is where everything you've learned so far comes together. The clear lens for mastering your mind, the deliberate aim for mastering your focus, and now the stillness to use them with intention. So when life pushes, remember, you don't have to push back right away. You can stop, you can breathe, you can choose. Because sometimes the most powerful action you can take is to take none at all. By now, you've learned to clear the lens, to aim your focus, and to use the pause to move with intention. But there's one more truth that will change the way you live. You're not the only one in this dance. Life has its own faithom. There's a current running through it, a timing you can't control, and a wisdom far bigger than your own. And the more you try to force every step, the more you'll find yourself exhausted and out of sync. Mastery isn't just about control. It's about harmony. It's knowing when to lead and when to let life lead you. Think about the times you've pushed and pushed, trying to make something happen before it was ready. the relationship you tried to hold together when it had already ended, the opportunity you chased when every sign was telling you to slow down. Forcing life rarely works. Even if you get what you want, it often comes with more struggle than joy. On the other hand, think about the moments when you surrendered a little, when you stopped gripping so tightly. Maybe you made space, maybe you walked away, maybe you simply stopped obsessing over the outcome. And somehow things began to fall into place. That's not an accident. That's the symphony of life playing out. Here's what I've learned. The universe has a better sense of timing than you do. There are seasons for planting, seasons for growing, and seasons for harvesting. You can't plant in winter and expect flowers by morning. And you can't demand a harvest before the roots are strong enough to hold the weight of the fruit. When you learn to harmonize with that larger rhythm, life feels different. Doesn't mean you stop acting. It doesn't mean you wait around for things to fall into your lap. It means you act with awareness and you trust that what's meant for you doesn't require you to destroy yourself to get it. Key. Sometimes leading means taking bold steps, putting yourself out there, and going after what you want with everything you've got. And sometimes leading means stepping back, letting go, and allowing the path to reveal itself. Both are forms of power. Both are necessary. Here's the tricky part. Your mind will try to convince you that surrender is weakness, that if you're not in constant motion, you're falling behind. But what if that pause, that surrender, that moment of not pushing is exactly what allows the next step to appear? I've seen it happen again and again. Someone hits a wall in their career, their relationship, their health journey. They try everything, harder work, more control, stricter plans, and nothing moves. Then they release. They open their grip. They stop trying to play the conductor for every note of life's music. And suddenly, there's movement again. It's almost like dancing with a partner. If you're both trying to lead at the same time, you're going to trip over each other. But if you can feel the rhythm, trust the steps, and take turns leading and following, the whole thing becomes effortless and beautiful. The same applies to your dreams. You're not meant to micromanage every beat of the journey. You're meant to show up fully, play your part, and then trust that life will meet you halfway. And here's the best part. When you stop forcing outcomes, you start noticing opportunities you never saw before. Because you're no longer blinded by the one specific way you think things have to happen. You become more open, more flexible, more willing to say yes to the unexpected. This isn't passive living. It's intelligent living. It's the awareness that your mind and your energy are powerful, but they're not the only forces at play. You're part of something bigger, a web of timing, connection, and opportunity that's constantly shifting and unfolding. When you work with that, instead of against it, everything changes. You stop feeling like life is a battle to win, and you start experiencing it as a dance to move with. And in that dance, you find a sense of peace and power that pushing will never give you. So yes, master your mind. Aim your focus. Pause when needed, but also trust the music. Learn to feel its rhythm and let it carry you forward when the time is right. Because sometimes the smartest move you can make is to stop counting the beats and start moving with the song. There we are. You've learned to clear the lens of your mind. You've learned to aim your focus where it matters most. You've practiced the pause so you can act with intention. And you've learned to move in harmony with life's rhythm instead of fighting it. Now comes the part that turns all of this from an inner shift into an outer reality, becoming the composer of your own life. Because once you've developed this kind of awareness, you stop just existing in the music and you start writing it. You stop reacting to the notes someone else plays and you begin shaping the melody yourself. This isn't about controlling every detail. You can't. None of us can. But you can decide the theme of your song. You can decide the tone, the tempo, the emotion you want running through it. And every thought you think, every choice you make, every moment you lean in or step back, that's a note you're placing into the composition. The truth is, most people live their lives like background and musicians in someone else's piece. They follow a script they didn't write. They repeat patterns they didn't choose. They wait for permission to take the spotlight. And by the time they realize they've been playing someone else's song, years have passed. But the moment you realize you are the composer, everything changes. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions to begin. You stop looking for the right time to go after what you want. You start creating now with what you have, where you are. That doesn't mean you throw caution to the wind. It means you start acting from clarity instead of habit. You start making decisions that line up with the life you actually want, not the one you've been told to settle for. And here's the beautiful part. Composing your life doesn't happen in giant, dramatic moments. It happens in the little choices you make over and over again. Choosing to speak up when you'd normally stay silent. Choosing to take the meeting you're afraid of. Choosing to spend your time on something that feeds you instead of something that drains you. Every one of those choices is a note in your song. Play enough of them with intention, and suddenly you've built something extraordinary, not by accident, but by design. And yes, there will still be things outside your control. You'll still have days when the melody goes flat or the rhythm is off. But when you're the composer, you don't stop playing. You adjust, you improvise, you find a way to weave even the wrong notes into something that works. This is why all the earlier steps matter so much. Without mastering your mind, your song will be written by fear. Without focusing your attention, your song will wander without direction. Without pausing, you'll fill it with noise instead of meaning. Without harmony, you'll fight the natural flow instead of moving with it. But with all of those pieces in place, you can create something that's not just beautiful, it's yours. And maybe that's the point of all of this. Not just to live, but to live deliberately. To walk through your days knowing you have a hand in how they unfold. To be awake enough to notice when you're slipping back into someone else's rhythm and brave enough to return to your own. So ask yourself, if your life is a song, what do you want it to sound like? Do you want it to be rushed and frantic or steady and strong? Do you want it filled with tension or layered with harmony? Do you want it to fade into the background or to be something unforgettable? You get to decide. And once you really understand that, you'll never again give away your pen, your notes, or your melody to someone else. Because the greatest privilege you have is to create a life that feels like it was meant for you. And the greatest tragedy would be to leave that privilege unused. Start writing, start playing, start living as if you are both the musician and the music, because this is your song. No one else can compose it, and the world is waiting to hear it.